Alright, in our last video we had just created the constants class where we've got a few things. I added a few more, key name, key email, key password. If you want, you can go ahead and pause the video and type those in because we're going to be using them here in a little bit. And then, like I say, we're going to be going down here and putting in some stuff. But before we do, somebody had told me they had an issue, so we're going to go ahead and take care of that right now. And what it was in the constants file, our PHP constants file, they were having an issue connecting to the database because it was saying that they didn't have a database name. So we're going to go ahead and define one, which I got it down here on the last line. Don't forget to put a semicolon after it. Where you get this, and you can call this anything you want once again, but you're going to have to remember what you call it because we're going to use it here in just a second. This here, what you did is you go over to your 000webhost.com, go to your database, your managed database page, and over here you have DB name. Just copy that and bring it over here to your constants page and paste it in. Don't forget to re-upload that to your website, because otherwise it's not going to, it's not going to be there. And then in your connect page, you're going to add it to the end of this line here. So you're going to do a comma after DB password and then put in DB name or whatever you chose to call it. And then don't forget, same thing, save it and make sure you re-upload that to your website as well so that it'll work. Alright, so we can get to work now. This is going to take a while because there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing a registration with an email verification. So rather than have, I told you, we can check for some things, which we did to make sure it had the @ symbol and all that, but that doesn't mean that it's a good email address, that somebody actually owns it. And you don't want somebody filling up your database with a bunch of garbage emails, because then eventually you run out of space, especially if you're trying to keep your stuff small. So what we're doing is when they go to sign up, we're going to send them automatically an email with a link with a pre-generated number that's going to be part of that link, and they're going to click on that. It's going to come back and verify that it's the right number, and if it is, then they will be verified and they'll be able to log in. So there's a lot of code here. So we're going to start over here. First of all, you can get rid of this toast right here where it says good code, because that's where we're going to be doing all our work. So hit a couple spaces. Now I'm going to go ahead and type some stuff in because, like I say, there's a lot of typing in here, and then I'll come back and explain it to you. Alright, so what we got here, it's called a string request. It works with volley, and all this stuff is either volley or that my singleton that we had put in. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a string request. You can call this whatever you want. This is, you can call it SR, you can call it whatever you want because it's a variable. You get to name it. You just got to remember what you name it. Alright, so string request is going to equal a new string request. And the parameters for that are going to be, the request method is going to be post. Now there's two methods, post and get, that are most common when you're doing a request. You can look them up, you can see what they both mean, but basically post is, I don't want to say the most secure, but the get is less secure. I would just put it that way. Alright, and then we're going to, the second parameter is going to be the URL that we're trying to grab. Now if you look here, we're grabbing the constants. If you remember, we did that in the last lesson, and we're grabbing the register USL. And if you remember over here, that is our URL, the database URL, plus register.php. So when you put them all together, it's going to take us over to our website and grab that file, and whatever we put in that file is going to be activated. Alright, going back over here. So that's our second parameter. Now you're going to go down here and you're going to type in a new response listener. And when you do this, if the IntelliSense is working correctly, it'll automatically generate this for you, the on response method. If not, you'll probably have to type it in yourself. Don't forget the override. And then at the end of that, you're going to have a comma. You're going to generate a new response error listener. And of course, if it's done right and you tab through it, it should generate the on error response. And if you see this volley error, remember we're using volley. And what I did was research some things. These are some of the most common timeout things that you're going to have. So we basically, if you get an error and it's a timeout error, we're going to say timeout error. And this is the stuff that's going to be toasted out at the bottom of your phone to let them know what the error is. Nothing they'll be able to do about it, because that's probably our problem. Alright, and then after that we're going to do some parameters. Let me go ahead, because that's one of my issues with most of these videos is they don't show you everything. So let me go ahead and bring this out to the end. So that you can see it. Pause it if you need to. Alright, and then the first part of it. And if you see up here, just real quick, on response, basically this is going to be what's given back from the website. So when we tell it, and we're going to be bouncing back and forth in the next video, to show you all the stuff that we're going to, be setting, which is going to be, down here, some of them in the params down here, which we'll get to in just a second. But whatever it toasts back, or whatever it sends back, we're going to put into a toast. So if it says, remember how we had a good code? Well, if we do that in the website, that's what you're going to see in your toast. And it's really good for testing, if nothing else, because you got to let the user know. I mean, was your registration successful? Because they're not going to be able to see the website. They're going to have to read whatever you send them back. That's the actual response from the website. All right, so moving on down. So at the bottom here, and when you type this in, pay real close attention to commas. Like you got a comma here. Okay, you don't have a comma here. And then the other thing to pay real close attention to, whether it's a curly bracket or just a parentheses, because one little mistype and your stuff won't work. Alright, so down here we're going to create something that's a get params, and when you go to type this in, if you just type in get params with a lowercase g, it should come up, and if you tab, it will set you up and it'll give you a return. It won't say params, it'll say something else, super something. But you'll at least have everything that you need there. Alright, so here's the stuff that you have to type in. We're gonna type in map with 2 strings. And we're gonna call it params. Now you don't have to call it params. Once again, this is a variable. You can name a variable anything you want, so you can call it P if you want. And then it's gonna equal a new hash map with 2 strings. And then parentheses, open close parentheses. Now we're going to grab that variable, params, and we're going to put constant's key name. So before I go over there, we'll just look at them all because we're doing that key email, key password, okay, and then we're going to the second argument in there is basically, if you remember up here, when we strung this stuff together, now we had to call these final. Okay, we had to make them final, and if you remember, we strung name and it equaled the username, get text, toString, trim. Same thing with email, and same thing with password. You don't have to do that with the other ones because we're not sending them anywhere. Alright. So basically, you want them to match up. Your key name is going to be name. Your key email is going to be email. Your key password is going to be password. And the reason we store them in variables is because we are going to use them in our login. At least the email and the password we're going to use. And then we may use some stuff down the road, so that's the reason we put them in our constants. Alright, so you got your key name, your key email, and your key password, and they equal name, email, and password. Alright, and then we're returning params, or whatever you called it, so that we can send it up to the database. Now this other thing is something that I came across that I just thought kind of added more security to your database and your app and all your stuff, and it's headers. And so if you type in get headers, once again, once you see it pop up, just hit tab and it should fill in the stuff. It'll look almost like the get params did. But here, what we're going to do is, you got the map. Basically, it's the same thing. The only thing is you're changing the parameters name, or the variable name. And I called it headers. You can call it H, whatever. Don't name it the same as params though. And it's going to be a new hash map. And what we're going to do, this is stuff that goes in the header. And I'll show you how this works here in just a little bit. But we're going to put in there, in the user agent, my test app, or whatever, just something that's unique. So you can name it after your app, or you can just generate a code or whatever, because when we get over to the PHP, we're going to actually take that, and if you're not working from this app, if you didn't get this app from you and they don't know what you put in here, they're not going to be able to access your app. In fact, here I'll show you, because I believe I got it working over here. So if we go, you remember I told you, we go over here to the website. Of course, we got to get to where we're going. So it was connect. So connect and then register.php. So when you hit this, you see how it says invalid platform? Now, that's because this isn't the same, it's not the same user agent, because you have different user agents. You got like Internet Explorer, the different versions. You got Firefox, and they all have their own. Now, somebody could probably come in and hack it if they wanted to, but they would have to know what you put in there, because as you can see, you can't get it. Like if you right click and you go view page source, the only thing that they can see is whatever the PHP sent back. It's PHP's code, and it's server side code, so they cannot get that unless they have physical access to your files, or a way to FTP in, which is a whole nother class if you don't know what FTP is. So that's one of the reasons that I put this in here, and I'll show you. We're going to test it out on the next video. And then down here, my singleton. You remember we put that in. So we're just calling on it. I don't, you know, you can look in here if you want and look what's under the hood and try and figure it out if you want. But that'd be probably a whole nother video, maybe two. All right, so we're gonna go back here. Just trust me, we're calling my singleton. We're getting an instance, getting activity. So that's kind of like saying this. We're adding the request queue, and what are we adding to the request queue? We're adding this string request. Wherever I put it, string request right here. So if you had any issues, I'm gonna leave this up here for a couple more. Make sure that you get time to, you know, enough time to pause and type it in. And let me go down here. So that's the end right there. That's all the code, all the good code for the Android app. Alright, so everything for registering is right there. That's all you need. Now, on the flip side, when we get over to PHP here in the next video, where, like I say, we're going to be bouncing back and forth because I'm going to show you things. I'm going to show you how it reacts on the phone. And the messages you get back and kind of the testing that you should do. Anyways, we'll see you in the next video. We'll be working with PHP and actually seeing the Android app in action.